So, aloha, good morning. Hello, Chuck.
Aloha.
Good to see
Good
you.
evening.
Good evening. Yeah. Hello, everybody watching. Thank you again for being with us in this special Easter week. We are heading towards Easter Sunday. So today is about all about Easter and the Easter special, actually. Plus, I've been thinking about the day we are seeing each other today, which is the 4th of April. And I know from your workshops that you are working a lot with numbers. There's the 10-day workshop and so on. There are certain numbers that have a meaning. And the 4 has a meaning as well. And maybe we just can start with this.
You mean the fourth month and the fourth day?
Yes, the chronic problems.
Yeah, 4 can represent chronic problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if you learn to transform it, it's like this obstruction, like this rock, and you're the little plant trying to go around it. Now, this could kill you, or you could learn to grow around the plant and learn to turn that obstruction into a cornerstone, into a foundation upon which to build your life. So there's some people who were born into this life and immediately there are chronic problems.
Okay, wow. Mm-hmm.
And their soul had faith in them that they could handle this. They had faith in themselves that they can handle this and transform it. Now, some people never succeed. Some people it takes a lifetime to do. Other people find, wow, this is a way that I can use to transform it, to make a difference in my life and in everybody's life. Because the key is having a difference in your own life. And once you handle those chronic problems in that way, then you become a builder. Mm-hmm. So you don't shy away from chronic problems. Then having healed your own chronic problems, you naturally want to help people get out of their chronic problems. Mm-hmm. What I have found is that if you look at things a different way, there's no pain, there's no loss, there's no fear, there's no guilt, because one of the hidden things about any trauma that we experience is that we felt guilty. Yeah. We felt guilty by having it happen. This is all in the subconscious. And then we felt guilty and we were in some ways punishing ourselves. And that we were using the trauma, punishment, fear that arises to not have to go to the next step, because that's what we were most afraid of. We can't handle the next step. We feel inadequate. Now, every time we've had a trauma in our life where we suffered, basically it adds, what happens in those things is we separate. So now we have a lack inside us. And so we naturally, if you don't have a lack, you wouldn't attack anyone. Yeah. And you also wouldn't be attacked. So it's those old wounds that get you. And they keep coming up to the surface in a new form to be transformed, to be healed. So it's like, the surfers here in Hawaii say the waves never stop, so you might as well learn to surf. They also say if it swells, ride it, being those aloha boys. Yeah. Anyhow, it's like 4 is very powerful. It's the 4 directions, the 4 cornerstones. And so it has a lot of meaning in that sense. But it also is the aspect of your family. It reflects the aspect of your family. Because it's like, that's your foundation. Your family leads to patterns in relationships, and your relationships lead to patterns of partnership, intimacy, and success. So wounds from your family set up these patterns. And it's the biggest conspiracy. And what I've named a conspiracy is a trap set up so good by the ego, it seems like there's no way out. But of course, heaven would never put us in a situation where there's no way out. That's just not what heaven would do. That's not what God would do. That's not what your angel would do. So there's absolutely a way out. And your desire, your will to find the way out where it seems impossible, is true. About 20 years ago, I was doing a business workshop in Honolulu, and there was a fellow who was there in the workshop, and he spoke of how his company, he had a company in Taiwan, and there was the big flood in Taiwan where even the main streets were covered with water.
Wow.
And his company was flooded. Now, he had aluminum furnaces, and they were flooded. And common knowledge at that point was there's no way that you'll ever get them started. He called experts all over the world. They all told him the same thing. Says, too bad for you. And he says, this was not only my company, I was supporting 200 families. He said, for 30 days, I never left the company. Once the waters receded, I went to my office and I slept in my office and I worked on this problem. How to relight an aluminum furnace when everybody says it can't be done. He says, but every day and every night I worked on this. And at the end of that, I found a way. And so he said, and we got all of our workers back, and we were able to keep going and expand. And he just had that confidence. Mm-hmm. And so it's that level of commitment. It's joining your will, which is not like, willpower, like, it's like your will joined with heaven's will, we'll find an answer. Mm-hmm. And it's just to give that much of yourself, because when you give 100% of yourself, it establishes partnership. It brings about the next step. It sets up ease. So it's like one of the things that I've done with people, and it's a simple healing exercise, is to go back to a trauma, go back to something that was unpleasant in your family and relationship, whatever. So do you have something that comes to your mind, Betty, just as an example?
Yeah.
Okay. And you want to share that, and we'll see this very simple exercise.
Yeah, it's being born actually as a woman. Once again, my chronic stuff.
Okay. So how much can you give yourself to being a woman, to being a girl?
20.
Mm-hmm. And what holds you back from giving more?
Wow, bad attitude.
Good catch.
Not one.
Everybody has this level of bad attitude. It's about 5 layers down in the mind. And that's a metaphor. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact here, but it's this really deep level where even the most positive people have this level. I've worked with people who've been surgeons, college professors, everyone, and they get to this stage in their lives, usually they're older, and this part surfaces to be dealt with. And they have this chronic problem, typically a chronic health problem. And then so finally, at some point, this bad attitude comes out. It's stubbornness. You're not stubborn, are you, Betty?
Yes.
Yes.
At this level, yes.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of things here: passive aggression, negativity, authority conflict.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like you telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And actually, if you follow that all the way down, it goes all the way down to our fight with God. God has a plan, and it's about happiness. But we said, well, I have another plan. I have a body, and I'm going to use it. So this bad attitude that's stopping you, let's see what happens here. What do you want from this situation? You want to finally accept yourself? Do you want to finally know self-love?
Yes.
Okay.
One part does want that, yeah.
Yeah. So you have a split mind. Let's deal with that first. How much wants to get to that point?
80%.
Great. And then you have 20% that's in opposition, which is attacking yourself all the time for being a woman and not always consciously.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's imagine that you could put that 20% in one hand and the 80% in the other. Now, everything in the universe is made up of light.
Mm-hmm.
So you could melt this 80% that's, wants to be a woman and love yourself as a woman, and this other part that doesn't want to be a woman, that has a bad attitude about being a woman. And all of a sudden, here's these two parts of your mind, but melt them down to pure light.
Mm-hmm.
As many levels as the conflict goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So you have two really big handfuls of light. And it's like, and then you just bring them together. And if it seems difficult to bring them together, you can have Mother Mary put her hands around your hands to help with that, or your angel, or whoever you feel close to. So that's the first step. So now, instead of going off, it's like, imagine having one leg going off in one direction, the other leg going off in the other direction. Your poor doodah, right? You just get torn apart here. And that's what's happening all the time in us. See, an authority you can't have a problem without an authority conflict.
Yeah.
That's one of the core principles. There's somebody you're fighting against. And when you get down to the bottom line, we're fighting against heaven. We're fighting against God. It seems absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But we get frightened. And our ego is very happy because our ego wants to keep us locked up, either exaggerate ourselves or make us suffer, or combinations of the two. And the thing is, we don't realize how destructive that is to our life, to our relationship, with our parents and our children and our partner, because we want to win then. Competition, you can't have a fight without competition. People want to win. They want to be right. They want to do it their way. Mm-hmm. They want their ego to, be in charge, to be in control. But what if you wanted the best way? What if you wanted the way where everyone can win? Because in the Course in Miracles, it describes the Holy Spirit as the one who brings a way for everyone to succeed. That seems pretty amazing. So, but I've seen a lot of tens of thousands of relationships where things have changed because of that shift in attitude. Okay, now we're back. 20% is a woman. Did any of that change?
It's 10% stubbornness.
10% stubbornness. So can you choose? Let's just see. Can you commit to being a woman? Somehow your higher mind said, this is the best learning vehicle for you.
Yeah, there's the feeling of inadequacy and not being capable of this last 10%.
Yeah, but that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's your desire to do it yourself that basically you can't do it alone. Everybody wants to. Everybody's ego says, yeah, let's do it alone. And just this last week, I worked with people who have created lots more challenges in their life, lots more trouble in their life. And they created it to prove how strong they were, okay, this will help me with my purpose. But actually, by the time you get to your purpose, you're worn out because you had to do all these other things that weren't necessary. Mm-hmm. So Can you commit to being a woman?
Yeah.
Just see, choose. It's a choice to give yourself fully to being a woman.
Now it feels like sliding into it.
Right. Right. It's really a core issue in the world, especially in Asia, but all over.
Yeah.
And our feminine side is our receiving side. And the more you've embraced both sides of yourself, the more you'll embrace your partner.
Mm-hmm.
You don't care about winning and losing, except for the fact that you want both of you to win, which is a much bigger challenge.
Mm-hmm.
How can everybody win? Somebody has to be a bad guy here. And let's see, if I have this guilt, let's see, should I be the bad guy or should somebody else be the bad guy? Oh, that's what a husband is for. That's what a wife is for. That's what my parents are for. It's their fault. I am the way I am. But then we have no power. If you have no responsibility, if you're a victim, that's the weakest position to be in, and you have no power.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really difficult because that's the thing you keep falling back on. Well, this happened to me. If that hadn't happened to me, I would be a totally different person. That's not the way it looks in the subconscious at all. It's like when you take responsibility, you get your power back, and then you find alternatives. You find other resources to change what you have. And, I've worked with people where, they were like hospitalized as babies and left in the hospital for months.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, and they didn't have the bonding
Mm-hmm.
that you would naturally get. But then there was a way to re-establish the bonding.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not heaven's way. There's a doctor, no relationship to me, but a Dr. Charles Spezzano, who used to work out of the University of Denver, and he worked with computers a lot, but he also worked with infant bonding. And he found that if the parents stayed together for the first 24 hours, especially the first 16 hours, then there is a natural connection, a natural bonding. And bonding means love and success with ease. So when you have a wound or a heartbreak, you actually have separated from yourself, not only from whomever was there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's to reestablish the bonding with yourself, which is self-love, love and success with ease. But it has to do with reestablishing bonding with the other people in the event, which can be done. It can be done through forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And as you forgive layer by layer, it clears the issues away.
Mm-hmm.
There was a psychiatrist here in Hawaii, and his name was Dr. Hugh Lin, and he was also a kahuna, a shaman here. And he had a method that he had developed with his teacher, Morna Simeona. And so he was asked to run the state hospital here. And he said, only if you let me do it my way. Only if I don't have to talk to any of the clients. And they go, what?
Wow.
And he said, but I'll get results. So, but if you want me, this is what I want. And they said, okay, we'll see how it goes. So he never met with any of the patients, and they were criminally insane and violent and everything you can imagine, like in any state hospital. And he did a simple exercise. He'd take their picture out and he'd look at it and he'd say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. The proof of the pudding's in the tasting. And in 6 months, what happened was the locked wards were open. Everybody was getting weekend leave, including those who used to be the most criminally insane. Some of the staff were helping him just by looking at the picture. See, when you say, I'm sorry, you take in principles of the subconscious, which is, the world is my projection. So everything I see is a representation of my mind. So it's again the principle of, let's see, do I want to feel guilty or do I want to put it on somebody else? And so we project it. So it's this key principle. And the thing is, when you project it, the ego says, yeah, I'll get rid of it for you. Let's project it. But it keeps it also. It keeps another catch of that hidden, and we pin it on the people around us. But forgiveness is the solvent that dissolves the glue of guilt, and therefore the fear, and therefore the other emotions that go with it. So the Course in Miracles has an exercise. I've used it. I was just doing a 5-day workshop by Zoom or Zomo for China. And we did a lot of work on forgiveness. And the Course in Miracles has one aspect, words of power, I call them, that if you say them with strong intent and keep saying them, your perception changes, which is where the pain is. Mm-hmm. And it's, I will forgive and this will disappear. Yeah. So if you do this like 6 times with strong intention, you might see some movement, but do it 12 times and things are really changing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you can call in heaven's help when you do any of these exercises. I will forgive and this will disappear. And there's another one that I use frequently, which is I won't condemn myself for this, because any problem is actually a form of self-attack. So anybody who seemed to obstruct you or attack you, or even pain coming up, even illness, I won't condemn myself for this. And you learn to see the world in a different way. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so much that we could do, and just this can take you to a new level. Well, the ego, of course, doesn't want you to get away. And after a little while of feeling good and celebrating, the next layer comes up. Yeah. And this always happens in relationships. How to make it better, how to commit to that relationship being better. So you can forgive anything, because like this desk here, I don't see the desk. I see many past judgments about the desk. But when you've forgiven enough, maybe, who knows, 1,000 times, the light appears and you start seeing light around people and around things, and you feel more whole, that lack that was inside you. Because where there was a separation, where someone seemed to wound you, mm-hmm. It's like you have a grievance toward them. And when somebody has pain, like at the state hospital, they are acting out old and ancient beliefs that are still inside us that we could never find except somebody else is acting it out for us. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to, attack people. Like your partner is acting badly. Well, it's a call for help. And your forgiveness or your love helps them. And every time you do, it helps you. Mm-hmm. You feel more peaceful. You heal not only your subconscious, which is what happens since conception, but you heal your unconscious, your soul's passage through time. Mm-hmm. And the stories I've heard coming out of people's minds have been just mind-blowing. Back in 1974, actually was 1972, when I was still living in Pittsburgh. In my first sessions, I could see that there was ancestral patterns being passed down through the family. And so soon I found a way to heal that ancestral pattern. I found about a dozen different ways that other people have found about how to heal ancestral patterns, but it's one of the very chronic problems. and may skip generations. Like in that first time I was working with people, there was always a rape every other generation, and there was always an illegitimate child every other generation. And this thing kept skipping generations and being passed down. Sometimes there's a predilection for cancer and other illnesses, and it shows up in the DNA. They have some research on this now about how this predilection for different illnesses are passed down. So just yesterday, I was working with someone where we worked 6 generations ago on the mother's side and 8 generations ago on the father's side to heal some of these patterns that are so deep. It looks like, how can we possibly heal it? But if your intention is wholeness, and that's when you're happy, it's when you're whole, it's when you feel lack inside you, you want to grab or take, and that leads to fights. And that leads to you attacking. But that's not the truth when everyone can win. So it's forgiveness. It's a very simple thing, but it's the hardest lesson to learn. But when you realize you're only forgiving yourself, then it makes it easier. There's different ways to motivate people. Because where you keep attacking, you get fearful. Where you keep judging, you get fearful. And those are just ways to hide guilt. And I can tell you, I've written a book on guilt, and the English version is called Healing Guilt. There are no bad guys, not even you. Because where you see a bad guy, it's like you feel guilty inside. It's like in 1975, I was working with a sailor, and he was talking about nuclear winter, how there was going to be this nuclear fallout and everything would be destroyed and things like this. And I got this intuition. This is what he's feeling inside about himself. And as we went in deeper into his mind, he was suicidal. And he was just that feeling of dying himself, killing himself, was projected out on the world. I have an early book called You Change Your Mind, Change the World. But it's learning how not to attack yourself, because if you attack yourself, there are no bad guys, not even you. Underneath all of your fights, there's guilt. Underneath all of your pain, there's guilt. And of course, there's fear to go forward. I can't handle it. I can't learn to be a woman. See, and that's the thing. You're going, you can't handle it. Well, how about you and Mother Mary, you and Mary Magdalene? You were coming up to Easter, this celebration of resurrection and redemption. And to have what seems impossible to be changed.
Yep.
Because
sorry, what I thought is as well about the chronic problems, it's in the Christ belief, it's 40 days towards Easter Sunday as well. That's again the number 4, maybe the chronic path.
Yeah. Well, that can heal, chronic problems. But if you do this forgiveness exercise every day, imagine doing that, and all of a sudden your perception begins to change, and then your emotions begin to change, and then how it looks begins to change, and how you see other people begin to change. If you could forgive their sorry ass. Because underneath it is your own sorry ass that you judged somehow and then thrown out on somebody. You shouldn't be that way. With this person that we dealt with the ancestral things, then we went back to, we were dealing with a divorce issue, and then we went back to all of the projection from a past life. Now whether you believe in past lives or not doesn't matter, because these stories come out of the unconscious. And if you change the story, if you make it a healing story rather than a heartbreak story or a guilt story, or a fear story. It's like then things get easier and smoother.
Mhm.
I've been at this work, doing healing work. This is my 53rd year, and there's always more for me to heal. And if there's not more for me to heal, and if I seem to be just kind of lollygagging around, then my wife shows me, here's something for you to heal, your husband. Thank you, wife, my Zen master. But my partner also, because if you don't have partnership, you won't go looking for these very deep issues. But the further you go, the bigger the problems, and actually the easier the solutions.
Mhm.
But the solution that will always work is this giving forth, like you were giving forth to yourself. Could you commit to yourself again, 100%?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. How does it feel now to be a woman?
Exciting, like newborn, actually.
Yeah, like this resurrection.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what Easter is all about. It's this symbol of hope that the impossible can happen. You know, um, how Jesus became the Christ is he transcended death.
Mhm.
He really got, I'm not a body.
Mhm.
I'm this spirit. That's how I was created. Like comes from like. So God's not this big body up in the sky. He's this wholeness, this oneness, this spirit, this love. And when he created us, he didn't make us separate. It's like we weren't made into separate little bodies. He's oneness. That, that he didn't divorce us right away. We divorced him because we wanted to do it our way. We went on strike. What? Anybody know about strikes out there? And so we wanted to do it our way, and we thought this will be an adventure. I want to be special, and to be special, you need to be different. But it's like when you get to a certain place in partnership now, and that's like you've done enough healing to get over your independence and enough healing to get over your independence with a partner. And it could be anybody, it could be your mom, your brother, a friend, that you just keep using the relationship to get closer and closer.
Mhm.
So there's no distance. It's just love between you. And then you get to a certain point and you begin realizing that you're not just a body. Now, that's like, graduate school kind of thing. But that's what your partnership goes toward. Then it's not just about the pleasures you can get from the body. That's where we all start. But then we transcend that. We go closer. It's just we're to create just a love relationship instead of a love relationship, unless you don't do it my way, and then you're going to get it. That's how most relationships are. They're special relationships. And what used to be love, because they're my missing piece, becomes hatred, becomes fights, becomes hurt, becomes judgments. But those are all the things we want to clean up. So it's to be on this healing path, to be on the path of becoming whole. So we're not looking to get things from our partner. We're looking to heal things in ourselves so we're whole. When you heal something, when you're whole, you naturally want to share it with someone. Because it increases when you share something. So sharing love. So all these places where you've hit deadness in a relationship, or exhaustion or sacrifice, that's the stuff to get rid of.
Mhm.
And then we think, there's a line in a Course in Miracles that talks about, we don't want to give up sacrifice because we spent all these years investing in it. So what we do is we let our ego run things. And the ego wants to make oneness, because the ego wants to be special and different and all that stuff. The ego is fighting against our belief in love or our belief in oneness. It wants its way. It wants its needs met now,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make you happy, right? So it's learning how to join with the people around you, how to love and be generous. There's a line in the Course in Miracles that says about learning to give like God gives, which is everything to everyone. Wow, that's amazing. But where we feel wounded, where we feel hurt, where we have this guilt or want to be special, it's like we feel stingy.
Yeah.
Here's something. This is a big subconscious piece, and I hope people sometime go and listen to these interviews again, because you'll hear so much more. But where you have a complaint, Betty, do you have a complaint about men in general?
Busted. Of course.
So what's your biggest complaint?
About tenderness, that they are not so emotional, that they are not, towards women and taking care of their tenderness.
In other words, men need feminine sides.
Yes. Exactly.
I once wrote a book called the Tao of Business, but it's TAO, the Tao Index.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about, the future of business and some of the patterns that I could see, by what was developing in the world. And a friend of mine, Bert, at the end of a lecture in Frankfurt, he said, what does what does business need? And I thought business needs brustas, which is exactly what you're saying. It's that feminine, tender spot. Because if business doesn't have a feminine side, it's also not going to be able to receive. So you work your ass off, but you can't receive. That's what happens with independence. And then you get into this exhaustion, this deadness. But your feminine side is balanced. You have masculine and feminine, and it'll show up in your partnership with people. So they don't have enough tenderness. So underneath every complaint, and this is the very hidden subconscious thing, underneath that complaint, there is a place where you're being stingy, where you're not being generous, where you're judging, where you're expecting, hey, I need some tenderness. Would you take it? Hey, Betty, who's the one with the brushes?
Yeah.
Most men need to be healed and educated. That's wives are the natural educators. And to bring a balance into your partner. Here's something I years ago, I guess it was about 42 years ago, when I became a marriage counselor. I went from being a psychologist for the Navy, went into being a marriage, family, and child counselor. And after doing that for about 4 or 5 years, what I discovered was that, in a relationship, everybody gets married for the wrong reason. And they'd come to me and they'd say, well, we'll give us an excuse. Tell us we can get divorced. I said, well, you can get divorced if you want, but everybody gets married for the wrong reason. Now discover what you want. What do you want? Do you want to get married for the right reason? So can you share this feminine grace that you have? Because it's the world's out of balance on its masculine side. It's still taking, it's still abusing, it's still dissociated. Like if your heart was fully open, you wouldn't do negative things to anybody because you would feel it yourself. So as you're generous, so think of a man who could use this feminine grace, this love. What man comes to your mind?
My dad, first one, of course.
So as you pour this feminine grace, and can you start from when you're just born? Here, Dad,
Yeah.
I'm your baby, gotta love me. I'm your little girl, but you have this power, this tenderness to help redeem your dad, to help save your dad. We have that power inside us to help the people around us. The biggest problem in the world that I've found is self-attack.
Yes.
And one of the ways to get out of self-attack is to give through the self-attack to help someone. Because when you're attacking yourself, your ego is trying to blind you to somebody who needs help. And if you pour that help, that love, people could go through hell itself if somebody's walking right with them and holding them close and just every step of the way. There was one time that my mother broke her back. She had osteoporosis. And she was in her 80s. So every day, I'd call her, sometimes twice a day, but I kept just sending love to her every time I thought of her, sending a gift that I had developed, sending courage. I knew my mother was courageous. She had me as a kid, and I was the quiet one.
Oh, wow.
So it's just to have that line of love, to ask for that deeper level of bonding with her and I. People need us. People need us. Everybody needs help, and it's being helpful. When God, as the essence of helpfulness, when he created us helpful. So to open up that gift of helpfulness, it gives you meaning. Not, I'm going to do this so you'll do that for me. No, it's like, I'm just going to give because you need it and you're a part of me. God didn't create us separate. Yeah. And he didn't create us boys and girls, boy babies and girl babies. He created us as one light, one being. And people who've reached that higher level of consciousness, they know what they're heading toward. So as you accumulate it in this life, maybe we're not going to all get to oneness in this life, but the more you accomplish, the more you heal, the more happy you are. And that's the proof of the pudding. You're happy. It's like you might get knocked down, but you get up and you become dauntless, even indomitable. And if you realize, there's something in the Course in Miracles that says God's not just, inside you, he's beside you also. Christ walks beside you. How could you be afraid if you knew Christ or Buddha or Kuan Yin or Mother Mary was there beside you? So very deep things are opening in the world for healing, very chronic issues.
Yeah.
And many times when I work with a person in a session it's like we'll heal the personal problem, but then we'll work on some kind of chronic issue. Maybe the war, maybe global warming,
Mhm.
or maybe sex trafficking or something that is actually an attack on the feminine. And, it's to go beyond gaining advantage, which is our independent side,
Mhm.
and to go into a place where we're partnering with the world. We're being a friend to everyone. We're being a friend to the whole world, to be that person who's marching in when the rest of the world is marching out, because you're not going to judge. You're going to help. So it's, it's time for us all to regenerate. We're going to be facing challenge after challenge after challenge, and they'll get deeper and deeper. But remember that there is help. There's heaven's help. And it's all inside you also. And as you find it inside you, the people, the books, whatever's needed will come to you, and something will, and you'll go, aha, and you'll free yourself. Here's what I found about most problems, okay?
Mhm.
It's like all problems have that fear, that guilt, that authority conflict. It's all going on. It's like we're in prison. We're holding, I want to get out of this prison. The thing is, we don't realize we made the prisons. And so you're holding the thing, and then you look around and you realize there's no walls on this prison. There's just bars, and I'm the one holding them up, and I can choose to let them go. And this is where your will and heaven's will are together.
Mhm.
So then you'll go forward in life feeling free until you get scared or feel guilty, and then you'll pick up another set of bars. How am I going to get out of here?
True.
I was just working with someone recently who was scheduled for a major operation, major cancer thing. And when he went in, the doctor was saying, wait a second, all the results are changing. How did this happen? And that's the thing. It's like you can get your power back. You can get the self-love back. If you want physical healing or any kind of healing, really, you need that self-love. Because if you don't have self-love, what do you have to give to a partner or a child or a parent? And forgiveness restores your love and your self-love. And it restores relationships because you see truly, it's like, to see somebody as the bad guy. Here's an exercise I used to do a lot. Okay, like you have this issue with your father. Okay. So imagine you bring up the father part of your mind.
Oh, wow.
And now be your father.
Mhm.
Imagine what it's like for him getting up in the morning, looking toward the day ahead. What's he feeling?
Dead inside, actually.
Yeah. So as he goes through the day, what's it like for him?
Wow. Like a zombie.
Mhm. So now, if you can't be ugly to someone that you understand, when you see what they've gone through to get to this place. So now, what gift do you have for your papa?
Life force,
So
life
and
energy.
can you open that? There's a place in A Course in Miracles that says if you give one of your gifts to God, he'll increase it 1,000 or even 100,000 times. Imagine that. And so you have this life and you have this life force and you share it with your papa.
Like an injection.
And I want to share with them the gift of compassion. You know, my heart to his heart. And that brings confidence and courage for him.
Mhm.
And this is a way of giving forth. But it's all us out there. Anybody out there who's listening to this might send a gift to her father. Why not? As you give to him, you give to his life and the whole family.
Mhm.
Come on, what gift wouldn't you give to Betty? So share this with her father. And your gifts are forms of love. There is no problem that doesn't have a gift hiding underneath it.
Mhm.
So as this gets healed, then the gift comes to the surface. Imagine that. All your problems, they're just gifts you're afraid of. Because your ego says you'll lose control. You don't want that. You don't want, if you get so gifted, people will attack you. You can only think that if you're attacking others because they have these gifts.
Mhm.
So you can throw this, your problems on the altar of truth, which sets up the healing path. It's a remembrance of the healing path. It's each time remember a little bit more about that original state of oneness. But then the gifts that were hiding under the problem come to the surface. So, Betty, if you threw on the altar of truth, this rings a bell, the altar
Yes.
of truth, your fear of being feminine, your feeling of inadequacy about that. And truth just wipes away the illusion. And what's the gift that's been hiding underneath there?
Innocence comes up actually directly. Yeah.
And your feminine side gets stronger. You're more like, ta-da,
Yeah.
joyful way,
Yes, sweet.
I love it when my wife comes to bed and she does, ta-da.
Sweet. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, it's like every one of you are needed. Your light is needed. And the more you shine your light, the more it attracts other lights. But if there's a place where there's no light around, one guru once said this to me. He said, if you're the only star in the sky amidst all this darkness, you're the brightest star in the sky. And then you start making constellations. You start joining with other stars. You start going forward with other stars to find a way out of the situation. So you learn that all the pain was a mistake, all the guilt was a mistake, all the shame was a mistake, and that you are as you were created. God created you as innocent. Who could change that? Our ego, in its arrogance, thought it could. And, heaven needs you. You need heaven.
Yeah.
Our weakness is heaven's strength. It's to help learn. It's like, when I was a kid, I just wanted to be strong. Just, I wanted to be Superman and Hercules and all these guys. But then I realized that strength is in unity. It's in partnership. So
Up to a happy Easter, full of partnership.
Happy Easter. You know, and may this new level of resurrection come about, this new level of happiness come about to win your life back. And to not try to change someone, but to just love them, you know, enjoy them, feel good about them, support them. So happy Easter.
Thank you. Happy Easter to you and everybody. Thank you so much, Chuck. Beautiful as always.
And remember, you think you can't do it, but what about you and Mary Magdalene? What couldn't you do?
Anything.
You and Mother Mary, you and Jesus, you know, just and they are older brothers and sisters trying to lift us up. And that world exists, but when you're independent, you want to do everything yourself. And so you just exhaust yourself, but not needed. Not needed.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful Easter week and wonderful Easter Sunday.
Thank you. You too. You too. And your family and your papa and your mama, your brother, and your team.
Yes.
Those rascals. Yes.
Thank you, Chuck. We love you. Thank you. See you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.